I had a decision to make here. I could have lied to the bounty hunters, claiming that I had no idea where Trent was, in order to avoid whatever hellish clash they would have engaged in. But at the same time, I was thinking that they'd actually be able to take him out, which would have meant at least one huge problem being solved. Also, it was pretty obvious that hiding by myself would only be a temporary reprieve. Something would find and kill me eventually. There was obviously no chance of me defeating the Messiah by myself, but the bounty hunters, well, I was hopeful. With that in mind, I began retracing my steps, leading the two towards the corridor where Trent and Kaz were about to throw down, hoping that the latter had at least managed to weaken the former. However, as soon as we turned our first corner, we came across 5 middle school-aged kids. They all had a faint, dark purple smoke rising up from their bodies, with blacked-out eyes and fang-like teeth. I suppose the assumption could be made that they might have been possessed. What made it even more complicated was the fact that they were kids. Could we really just kill them? "All right," I said. "Let's think of a way to incapacitate and restrain them." I acted first, attempting to grab one of the kids and put them in a chokehold. Like I said, I'm not the smartest guy. As soon as I got close, the kid grabbed me by the arm and swung me into the lockers with beast-like strength. The bounty hunter simply laughed in response. After wiping an amused tear from his eye, the man stepped forward, drawing an extremely large blade from his exoskeleton. He rushed forward at a dizzying speed, slicing each of their heads off in immediate succession. "All right," he said, completely unfazed by what he'd just done. "Let's go." "Why did you—" I began stammering out. "They were kids. We could have freaking what?" the woman said, stepping by me. "Gotten your ass ripped apart by them?" And then she scoffed. "Don't tell me you were thinking they could be changed back. It really doesn't work like that." I stood there for a second, horrified by their blatant cruelty. But the realization quickly dawned on me. What else could we have done? It wasn't so much that I was disturbed by what they'd done. That part seemed inevitable. It was more so the attitude they displayed whilst doing it. "Well?" the man asked me. "You coming or what? We'll ditch you right here if you don't move." I forced myself to get over it, under the reasoning that I was going to forget that any of this happened. Well, try to forget. The idea of a brain wipe was sounding pretty good at the moment. When we got to the corridor, where I'd seen Trent last, it was empty. No bodies even, just a lot of bloodstains on the ground. The male hunter sighed. "Well, damn. Really hope that guy's still alive." As we were about to head off to keep searching, a voice called out from behind us. "What's going on here?" It was deep and gravelly, in a tone that was both reversed and implicitly aggressive. We turned around, seeing an older man, maybe mid-40s, clad in dark green tactical gear. His hair was cut short, and one of his eyes had a gnarly scar running through it. He chewed on his cigar, seemingly analyzing the three of us. "Are you my targets?" he asked, probably not expecting an answer. The male hunter shook his head. "Don't think so. Who the hell are you?" "Calhoun," the man responded. "Class 1 holy soldier." "Another one?" I thought to myself. "Let's see," he continued. "I'm sensing no power coming from him," he said, pointing towards me. "But you two, what's your business here?" He gestured towards the hunters. "Our business?" the woman spoke up. "Nothing to do with you." Calhoun sneered before dropping his cigar and stomping on it. "You're impeding official U.S. military business. I freaking hate bounty hunters. Get a real job." The male hunter sneered back as he stepped forward. "What, like yours? You're a real saint, you simpering puppet." Calhoun's lips curled into a really unpleasant smirk. Good. Throw the first punch. Makes it even better for me. And then before I could say anything at all, they were fighting. Each of their swings and kicks were devastating, shattering the ground and busting open metal lockers with each missed strike. It truly was a clash between titans, and it was infuriating to watch given the situation. "What the hell are you guys doing?" I called out. "Can't this wait?" I turned to the male hunter, expecting her to be some voice of reason. But of course she was also insane, watching the fight with a huge smile plastered on her face. "Ah, God," was all I could mutter out. While the fight had started off pretty even, Calhoun was quickly gaining the upper hand. He stopped one of the male hunter's slashes by grabbing the blade. "You don't have any experience, do you, boy?" he said before snapping it off and plunging it in one of the hunter's eyes. Despite the grievous injury, the hunter simply let out an exasperated grunt and persisted forward. He began swinging with his naked fists, managing to connect a few times with Calhoun's ribs. But the holy soldier hardly seemed affected, grabbing the hunter by the head and drilling his knee upwards, shattering the jaw. Calhoun finished him off by pulling out an extremely sawed-off shotgun and blasting the hunter's torso to hell. I could only watch in abject shock as the inexplicable scene unfolded in front of me. But I'd be lying if I didn't admit to being somewhat astonished by the whole thing. I was nearly in a state of morbid awe. I looked at the female hunter, expecting her to be absolutely fuming. Instead, she just sighed before drawing her own gun and immediately blasting a shot at Calhoun. Point blank, I thought. There's no way he... I looked up, seeing Calhoun with his fist outstretched, the veins on his hands pulsating. He opened his hand, dropping a massive, bloody bullet to the ground. "Damn, that hurt," he replied. The woman reholstered her weapon, appearing to be somewhat worried. All right, you old bastard," she muttered, sounding increasingly unhinged. She removed her goggles, revealing a pair of large, bright red eyes underneath. She grunted before releasing what can only be described as a beam of optic energy. The blast ripped through everything in its path as she followed Calhoun with it. At a point, it was inches away from cutting me in half had I not jumped. But no dice for her. The guy was just too fast, on top of his overwhelming strength. He evaded her blasts with ease before he rushed forward, decapitating her with one chop to the neck. Her head went flying before landing at my feet. It was a sight that caused me to gag. I've seen my fair share of rough stuff, but the state I'm located in is one of the safest in America. Maybe if I was based in a rougher place, my resolve would have been higher, but that just wasn't the case here. Calhoun turned to look at me, wiping blood from his hands. "SWAT, huh? I can respect it. You're still getting brain-wiped after everything's said and done, though." I opened my mouth, searching for a response, but there just wasn't any I could force myself to say. "Count yourself lucky," he said in response to my apparent apprehension. "It'd be easier for me to kill you on the spot. I'm letting you live out of the kindness of my heart." That seems like faulty logic, I thought to myself, but whatever. There was obviously no use arguing with the guy. "What hell's going on outside? Is it safe?" I asked him. Calhoun chuckled, somewhat condescendingly. "You don't want to see what's going on outside." Obviously, I wasn't terribly excited at the prospect of some state-ordained brain-wiping procedure, but at the moment, I was just trying to survive. I began following Calhoun as he began traversing through the corridors. "Where are we going?" I asked him. "Looking for the Messiah," he responded. "Once I get rid of him, we can go home." It was something that seemed far easier said than done, but I really had no other option than to follow the guy. He seemed strong enough, after all. He was shouting up a storm as he walked through the halls, in an attempt to provoke Trent to come out. It was something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. We were drawing too much damn attention. Although it didn't seem to matter much, since Calhoun either punched or shot a hole through any creature that attacked us. After a few minutes of this, somebody took the bait and met us in a hallway. But it wasn't Trent. It was a tall, wiry man with dark, slicked back hair, wearing a leather jacket and tight jeans. What now? I thought to myself. Another government guy? More bounty hunters? You're causing quite the ruckus out here, the man said, walking forward. Looking for somebody? Yeah, Calhoun responded. Don't think it's you, though. I can tell that you're no stronger than this guy, he said, gesturing towards me. The man smirked. Cool ability. I can tell you're pretty strong as well. Calhoun scowled, already annoyed at the conversation. Where's Trent? You another one of his lackeys? I thought he only recruited the strong. Can't imagine he'd choose fodder like you. Yeah, the man smirked. Can't imagine it either. As soon as he finished the statement, thick veins began bulging out of his neck. He stuck his arm out to the side, and before I could blink, it morphed into a terrifyingly familiar sight. It was the same insect-like appendage that had grabbed Axwell earlier. I could see Calhoun's eyes beginning to widen upon realizing his misjudgment. He took a fighting stance, rushing the man faster, more ferociously than he did the female hunter. The man swung at him, but Calhoun was swift enough to dodge the strike, managing to punch a hole through the man's torso. But instead of reeling in pain, the man simply continued grinning. Tough guy, huh? Good for you. Still with a gaping hole in his stomach, the man extended his other arm, transforming it into some kind of massive, fleshy, veiny axe. He swung it forward, managing to slice a portion of Calhoun's forearm off, who'd barely managed to dodge what would have been a fatal blow. Come on, the man said nonchalantly. Don't force my hand here. As he said this, I could see the hole in his stomach beginning to regenerate. It was a messed up sight, to say the least. But it didn't end there. The man's legs seemed to revert back into his torso, with a collection of long, arachnid-esque legs quickly popping out in their place. This feels as gross as it looks, you know. At that point, he'd become far faster than Calhoun. He crawled onto the walls and ceiling before splitting Calhoun's head down the middle with his hand axe. When he landed back on the floor, he'd returned to his normal human self once again, and then he turned to face me. Look at that. My jacket's ruined. I was running before he'd finished his sentence. However, he didn't seem to be putting much effort into the chase, whistling as he marched behind me, sustaining a moderate pace at best. I ran like hell for around 10 minutes, evading stray creatures in the process. At a point, I found an empty computer lab and barricaded myself in there. It didn't take long for the man to find me, though, but for whatever reason, he didn't barge in immediately. Instead, he's talking to me through the door, telling me that no matter what I do, I'm going to be transformed into one of Trent's messengers, that he has a quota to fill. Update. He just broke in. The final stage of grief is acceptance. The obscure man was approaching me with a calm demeanor, which made him even more frightening. Can't we just skip the other 4? There's only 2 outcomes for you here. I didn't respond, causing him to sigh. It was less of an attempt at defiance and more to do with me being at a loss for words. Okay, how about I introduce myself, get us acquainted? I'm Shen. You? Pete, I told him. Okay, Pete. Believe me when I tell you that there will not be another chance like this for you. Right now, Trent's in a good mood. but once he finishes converting the rest of the school children into cannon fodder for his army, he's gonna go on an effing rampage. At that point, it'll be too late for you. He's not entirely there in the head, so you can't really try reasoning with him, you know? Besides, I'm trying to get on his good side by converting competent soldiers. If you're trying to recruit people, then why'd you kill Axwell? I asked him, feeling a momentary hint of anger amongst my general shock. He shook his head. Who? Look, if I killed one of your cop buddies, then boo-hoo. Like I'd even give a semblance of a hell. I'm only after the strong anyway. I scoffed. Well, I don't know what the hell you want with me then. You should have tried recruiting that guy you just killed. He seemed strong. Shen stood up, letting out a sigh. Sure, that meathead had decent physical strength, but look where that got him. I chopped his head like a melon. And look at you. You're still alive. You could do the same to me, I responded. How am I different? Listen, you dense moron. It's true that I could kill you right now, but I'm choosing not to. You know what? Screw what you think being strong means. The stuff you've been fed by Hollywood and the media and crap, that's all nonsense. The strong are the ones that end up surviving. Self-preservation is the only thing that matters. If you can punch holes through buildings but end up getting taken out by a bigger fish right after, how are you anything but weak? He slammed his hand down on my shoulder, and what I assumed was supposed to be an encouraging pat. However, I could feel it dislocate from the impact. You're still alive, huh? Have some confidence in yourself. I reeled from the pain, causing Shen to chuckle. I can't lie, though. You normal humans sure are fragile. He put his hand back on my shoulder, softer this time, and I could feel my bones shifting back into place, with my pain being alleviated at the same time. I was stunned, hardly comprehending what had just happened. What the hell did you just do? I asked him. Not only does my own body regenerate, he responded, I can heal others as well. I'm basically Jesus, aren't I? Maybe I should be calling myself the Messiah instead. Is there a difference between the two? I don't know. But don't get too excited. I stand by what I said earlier. There's only two options for you. Either you willingly undergo the transformation right now, or I beat you down until you do. What do you... Before I could finish my question, he stomped down, effortlessly crushing my kneecap. I always thought I had a decent enough pain tolerance, but I never could have been prepared for something like this. Enough? You want to come with me now? But despite the excruciating, overwhelming pain, I didn't concede. For whatever esoteric reason, my mind was stubborn, barring me from giving in. Maybe I really just hated the idea of turning into some demon creature. Or maybe it was something else. Another driving force I couldn't explicitly identify. Well, damn, he chuckled. One leg is usually all it takes. But don't think I'm gonna heal you up and let you go like that, eh? Why are you doing this? Why are you following that guy? I asked him through the pain, hoping to stall more than anything else. You really think that guy's some savior? Shen chuckled. I'm not a damn idiot, so of course not. Trent's just an overpowered lunatic. Unlike him, I'm not some clown-tier cartoon villain. I'm just rational. But right now, I stand zero chance if I were to take him on. If you can't beat him, then join him until you can beat them. What's his goal? What's he even trying to do? I asked. Trent, I mean. Shen responded. Well, what happens when a really psychotic guy gains godlike powers through an arcane ritual with roots dating back to the inception of mankind? One that involved killing over 250 people, each in an extremely obscure manner, over the course of 15 years? As you can see, crap hits the fan, and the rest of us end up scrambling. He squatted down, getting eye level with me. I told you, didn't I? When the storm hits, the strong always find a way to survive. It's a simple rule. Do you understand? He smiled when I refused to respond. Let's just see how long this tenacity lasts. One of his arms abruptly transformed into a slimy xenomorph-like mouth with rows upon rows of jagged teeth. Now this is going to hurt. A lot. But all you need to say is a few words to make it all stop. I can only remember the following half hour as a bloody blur. The pain was followed by moments of fleeting numbness, only to return with even more intensity. Shen must have dealt me 50 fatal blows, only to heal them up and repeat the process right after. He'd sliced me in half at the torso, stomped on my ribs, crushed my legs, etc. At a point, I lost consciousness after choking on my own blood, only to be awakened seconds later with my jaw dislocated. What's the principle behind this persistence? You got a chip on your shoulder or something? He asked me. I could only wheeze in response, despite getting dangerously close to my breaking point. I was operating under the logic that there was no point in giving in if I'd already been pushed so far. Live on your feet, or just freaking die. My old man's words popped into my head. He'd always been kind of an a-hole, but at that moment, I clung onto the advice. The whole situation was ridiculous. The torture was simply an attempt to get me to convert, and I couldn't fathom why the guy seemed so hung up on it. But the further he went, the more my mind was beginning to adapt. The pain was nearly impossible to endure for the first few minutes. After 10 minutes, it was only somewhat excruciating. After 20, I was beginning to get used to it. After 30, I was laughing. It was as if a switch had flipped in my brain. Maybe he really had driven me to some transitory state of madness. My rationality had faded, with the torture sessions suddenly seeming utterly absurd as opposed to anything else. Even Shen seemed surprised at my reaction. Oh, come on, he sighed. This is getting frustrating. Did I mess your brain up? I made sure not to touch it. He frowned his brow. Or is this just your inner willpower manifesting? Maybe you've got some crap going on that I'm not aware of? His arms reverted back to their normal form from the flesh saws he'd been using to hack me up with. Despite him fully healing me up, the pain still lingered throughout my entire body. Either way, this isn't gonna work. He stretched his arms out before fixing his blood-stained collar. My blood, mind you. Guess I'll just have to let you go. Those words were enough to snap me back into reality. In my excitement, I tried to stop myself from saying something stupid that might change his mind. But like I said, I'm an idiot. Yeah, good, I stammered out. He gave me a confused squint before explaining his decision. The transformation likely wouldn't have worked on you regardless. You could say I was testing you out there. Those with strong enough wills end up resisting it. No point in trying to convert somebody who can't be converted. Can't say you haven't earned my respect, though. Guess I'll leave it like this. He turned and began heading towards the door. Crap's still pretty crazy out there. Let's see if you can survive this. He grinned at me once more. If you manage to make it out of here alive, I might just have to admit that you're stronger than me. Also, don't tell Trent that I let you go. If you see him, of course. And with that, he was gone, leaving me with a faint, stinging sensation throughout my body. What a damn weirdo, I thought to myself. But I was still alive, now more determined than ever to keep it that way. I stayed put until my senses had stabilized, only leaving when a veiny eye stalk burst through the ground in front of me. Shen was right. It was still as dangerous as ever. I traversed through the area, avoiding any potential conflicts, until I came across somebody familiar in one of the corridors. A large man wearing heavily damaged armor and a skull mask. Kaz? I called out to him. The bulky figure turned around. Oh, it's you. What happened? Your clothes are all torn up. Yeah, I began. We need to get out of here. Kaz nodded, seemingly clutching his chest in pain. Couldn't agree more. What happened to you? I asked, approaching him. Did you beat Trent? He shook his head. Not even close. He ripped one of my hearts out a few seconds after you left. Oh, that sucks. And then I thought about what he'd said. Wait, one of them? He nodded. I had 4. 3 now. I just pretended to play dead. I nodded, not really needing or wanting a further explanation. I already called it in, he continued. We can't deal with this guy. Nobody in our division can. Except for one. They're sending in the big gun. And who's that? Kaz let out a big exhale. Judas. The tone in his voice as he said it was rather alarming, almost as if he were naming the devil himself. So this Judas guy, he's gonna come and fix all this? Well, he'll probably be able to kill Trent. The problem is he'll probably kill everybody else in the process. He's like a somewhat sentient natural disaster. Any place he gets assigned to usually ends up getting wiped off the face of the earth. In fact, there's a good chance that every single person in this town will die if the fight lasts long enough. The cover-up process gets complicated afterwards. Glad I'm not a desk guy. But yeah, you could say that he's quite the nuisance. And that's why we gotta get the hell out of here before he shows up. I used to have 6 hearts, you know. But then I got caught up in the aftermath of one of his little outings. Kaz started walking, and I followed. Well, if this guy's so volatile, then why does the government let him out? Obviously for situations like these, Kaz responded. They're willing to sacrifice a smaller town as opposed to nuking the whole place or something. And honestly, I'm willing to bet that Trent could survive a nuke. He'll probably eventually wipe out a good portion of the earth if we don't kill him now. Let's call Judas a necessary disaster. Damn, I muttered. Also, he continued, the government has no way of controlling him regardless. At the moment, they've somewhat managed to brainwash him into embracing good old American ideals, but I reckon he could change his mind and snap at any moment. But then, we're all done for. Better to get on his good side while we can. So, what the hell is this guy then? I asked. Who knows? Kaz responded. Nobody but the top echelon of officials with the highest clearance have any info about him. Kinda scary to think about. Now, I'd never been a conspiracy theory buff, but I did my fair share of research into the matter. But even then, I never could have imagined something like this. After about 5 minutes of walking, Kaz said he needed to rest for a bit, given his injuries. We've taken refuge in another classroom ever since. There's a rotting corpse in here, but every other room we'd come across had been occupied by something far worse. Right now, we're trying to figure something out. A plan, so to speak. Kaz estimates that we have between 40 minutes to 2 hours before Judas arrives. This isn't even a matter of hiding until backup arrives anymore. The situation has become immeasurably screwed, and we need to find a way out of here. That's the new objective. But given the circumstances, that may be tough. Update. I began wondering how a body would be already rotting if Trent hadn't invaded only some hours prior. And then the corpse stood up. Thank you for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video. I just wanted to quickly let you know about a couple things I have going on. I have an Instagram where I post more personal things about who I am. It isn't just all creepy stuff. You can find me at Stories After Midnight. I also have a Twitter where I mainly retweet and like things I find interesting. The handle for that is in the description, but it is S_A_midnight. I should really find another one because that's hard to say. If you really like what I'm doing, consider joining the Midnighters. That's my growing community where we hang out and have fun and talk about cats. You can find a link to our Discord in the description below. We'd love to see you there. Other than that, it'd make me happier than a cat on a table full of antique glassware if you'd like the video and consider sticking around for more. We'll see you in the next one.